December 21st, 2025, Buddha Dhamma, Chapter 9.2, Miracles and Psychic Powers, page 916. Introduction. Although psychic powers are classified as expressions of higher knowledge, abhinya, it's also translated as supernormal power or supreme knowledge. In Pali language, psychic powers is iti, may be referred to as the wonder of psychic power. Iti pati haraya, the form of psychic power. Iti viti, or the manner of psychic power. Iti vata. Now, psychic powers of all kinds, including the divine ear, clairvoyance, telepathy, recollections of past lives, are mundane forms of higher knowledge. They are connected to mundane phenomena and belong to the domain of unawakened beings, as remain under the sway of mental defilement. There are 5 forms of mundane supreme knowledge. The first one is magical powers, including the ability to become invisible, to project mind-made images of oneself, to pass through solid things, to walk on water, or to fly through the air, etc. 2, the divine ear. 3, telepathy. 4, recollection of past lives. And 5th, clairvoyance. People achieve these mundane forms of higher knowledge even before the time of Gautama Buddha. They are not dependent on the arising of Buddhism. Psychic power do not comprise the essence of Buddhism. They are not necessary for reaching its goal. The essence of Buddhism and that which accompanies the arising of Buddhism is knowledge leading to the cessation of dukkha and the cessation of mental impurities. This knowledge, classified as the 6th and final form of higher knowledge, is called knowledge leading to the end of taints. Asavakaya nana. It is the transcendent form of knowledge, lokutaraya abhinya, exclusive to awakened beings. It leads unawakened people to the deliverance and purity, to freedom from worldly constraints, and to the complete realization as noble beings. Arya Pukala, or one worthy of homage, Dakinaya Pukala. The mundane forms of higher knowledge can decline, whereas transcendent supreme knowledge is unshakable, unmoved. Achieving transcendent supreme knowledge is superior to achieving all 5 of the mundane forms of higher knowledge. But achieving the mundane forms in addition to transcendent supreme knowledge is considered outstanding and a sign of perfection. Transcendent supreme knowledge is essential for a truly virtuous life. Mundane forms of higher knowledge are not essential, but rather an essence, and that enhances a person's spiritual quality. Detailed explanation of forms of higher knowledge, abhinya, along with scriptural references, are presented in Chapter 7, as we already covered. The 3 kinds of miracles. Gautama Buddha classified psychic powers as one of the 3 kinds of miracles. Patiharya. The first one is iti patiharya, the miracles of performing psychic powers. The second one is adesana patiharya, the miracle of reading mind. The third one is anusasari patiharya, the miracle of instruction, the teaching of truth, which leads to true insight and true fulfillment. Here's how these miracles are described in the Pali Canon, in the Tipitaka. The first one, the miracle of performing psychic powers. There are some who perform virtuous kinds of supernormal power. Having been one, he becomes many. Having been many, he becomes one. He appears and vanishes. He goes unhindered through a wall, through a rampart, through a mountain as if though through space. He dives in and out of earth as if it were water. He walks on water without sinking as if it were earth. He flies through the air like a bird. With his hands he touches and strokes the sun and the moon, so powerful and mighty. He exercised mastery over with his body, even as far as the Brahma world. Miracles described in the Pali Canon, 2. The miracle of mind reading. Here a monk reads the minds of other beings, of other people, reads their mental states, their thoughts and considerations, and declares, this is how your mind is. This is how it inclines. This is in your heart. Example of this is from the Kevata Sutra. There are some people who, by means of sign, declare, this is how your mind is. This is how it inclines. This is your heart. However many such declarations he makes, they are exactly so and not otherwise. Another does not make his declarations by means of a sign, but after hearing voices of humans, of spirits or devatas, declares, this is how your mind is. This is how it inclines. This is in your heart. Or by hearing the sound of a person's applied, sustained thoughts as he thinks and declares, this is how your mind is. This is how it inclines. This is in your heart. Or by mentality penetrating the mind of someone in a thought-free state, concentration, knows clearly the mental volitional formation. The mental volitional formation, samkhara, in the person's mind. Knows that after this volitional formation, he have his train of thought. And however many of such declaration he makes, they are exactly so and not otherwise. The marvel of mind reading, adesana patiharya, appears similar to telepathy, sito pariyanana, or parasita vijana. But it differs in that the former is still at the level of intuitive perception. It has not yet reached the level of direct knowledge. The miracle of instruction here, a monk gives instruction as follows. Reflect in this way. Do not reflect in that way. Pay attention to this way. Do not pay attention in that way. You should abandon this and dwell in the attainment of that. In the Kevata Sutra of the Dikha Nikaya, this passage is followed by the description of Gautama's Buddha appearing in the world and teaching the eternal law of Dhamma, Satana Dharma, which instills faith in people, leading them to go forth as renunciants, developing good conduct, sense restraint, mindfulness, and clear comprehension. They seek solitude, develop meditation absorption in jhanas, and attain the sixth form of higher knowledge, abhinya, ending with knowledge of the destruction of the taints, asavas, then realizations of the arihatship, or become an arihanta. All these results of the teachings are examples of the miracles of instruction. Here are the literal meanings of the Pali words mentioned above. Patiharya. Definition, miracle, to beat back, drive away, or destroy something that is unfavorable or hostile. Iti, meaning psychic power, achievement, accomplishment. Adesa, na, mind reading, to indicate, to reveal, point out, make clear. Anusasani, meaning repeated instruction. Applying these definitions of pati sammupata, dependent origination, explains the three kinds of miracles in a new way. It states that all virtuous qualities like renunciant, loving kindness, jhana, insight into selfishness, and the path to arihatship are iti pati hariya, meaning a miracle, in the sense that they lead to specific achievements and eliminate negative qualities like sensual desire, ill will, and other mental defilements. All virtuous qualities are adesana patihariya, in the sense that they only arise in the presence of a clear heart and unclouded mind. Virtuous qualities are anusasani patihariya, because the teaching has emphasized their proper application, cultivation, development, and balance. Although these are not common explanations for these miracles, they offer a thought-provoking perspective. Psychic powers are not essential. The householder, Kevata, once went to Gautama Buddha and asked him to perform a miracle. Lord, the city, Nalanda, is rich, prosperous, populous, full of people who have faith in the Blessed One. It would be well if the Lord would request some monk to perform a superhuman miracle. In this way, the citizens of Nalanda would come to have even more faith, would come to have boundless faith in the Blessed One. Gautama Buddha replied, Ketava, this is not the way I teach the eternal law of Dhamma to monks, by saying, go monks and perform superhuman feats for the white-clothed lay people. Gautama Buddha goes on to say that the three kinds of miracle he disfavors psychic powers and mind reading because he sees their potential harm. When hearing about these things, those who believe in their validity become further convinced, while those who are skeptical deny their validity. They may claim that a monk who performed these feats has distorted or resorted to use a magical charm, a mind-reading charm, or some other trick. This disparity of opinion is followed by arguments and disagreements. Gautama Buddha then explains the meaning and value of a miracle of instruction, saying that it can be applied and its benefits realized by everyone until one reaches knowledge of the destruction of taints, which is the goal to attain in the path of Buddhism. He gave an example of a monk who was highly skilled in psychic powers, who wanted to know where the four great elements cease without remainder. The monk traveled to the celestial realms in search of answers to this question, pressing on until he arrived at the Brahma realms. But finally unable to get an answer, he returned to the human realm in order to ask Gautama Buddha to explain the true nature of the world. The story shows how psychic powers are limited, often ineffective, and not the essence of the Buddha's teachings. Another occasion, the Brahmin Sangarava mentioned to Gautama Buddha a conversation occurring among the king's courtiers in the palace on the following subject. Formerly there were few monks, but there are more who displayed miracles of supernormal powers, transcending the human level. But now there are more monks, but fewer who displays miracles of supernormal power, transcending the human level. Gautama Buddha replied by explaining 3 kinds of miracles. He then asked Sanghawa, which one of these 3 appeals to him as the most excellent and sublime? So Sagangvara answered that a knowledge and realization of miracles of psychic powers and mind reading is restricted to those who perform them. This knowledge cannot be preferred to others. From the outside, they appear as having the nature of a magician's trick. Therefore, the miracle of instruction is superior and more sublime. The recipient of this instruction can reflect on, apply, and realize these teachings, leading to the end of dukkha. Side note, it is good to note that Buddhism is an oral tradition passed on from individual to individual. Noble psychic powers. Another passage in the Pali Canon, the Tipitaka, describes 2 kinds of psychic powers. The first, psychic powers that are not noble, psychic powers accompanied by mental defilements and acting as a basis for suffering, upati. Example, psychic powers as normally understood and as discussed earlier, here through determined effort, a renunciant attains liberation of mind, becomes a Sito Vimutti, and performs various supernormal feats like projecting mind-made images, walking through walls, flying through the air, driving into the earth, and others walking on water. Second kind of noble psychic powers is noble psychic powers free from mental defilements that are not acting as basis for suffering. In this case, a monk exercises self-mastery over his perceptions and is able to control his responses to sense impressions. He can view a repulsive object and not get repulsive. For instance, he can look at a person whose face is disfigured and relate to this person with kindness and friendship. He can view an attractive object as unattractive. For instance, he can see a charming, enticing body as repugnant. Or he can remain equanimous, relinquishing both the attractive and the repugnant. For example, while reflecting on things that in an unbiased way and seeing into their true nature. The passage confirms that psychic powers are normally understood. The ability to perform amazing and fantastic feats are neither praised in Buddhism nor are they essence of Buddhism. In Buddhism, the highest form of psychic power is the ability to control one's responses to sense impressions and develop mental self-mastery. This form of power causes no harm to oneself or others. Those who exercise the former kinds of psychic powers may not be able to exercise the latter. They are occasionally apply their psychic abilities to indulge their defilements. The later kind of psychic powers, however, foster wholesome qualities, eradicates defilements, and keeps the mind from being secluded by greed, hatred, and delusion. For the objective of this form of practice, the kinds of psychic power is the form of deliverance of the mind by way of loving kindness, metta sito vimutti, by which a person has reached a level of radiant liberation, supha vimokha. It can arise from developing the 7 factors of enlightenment, bojana, accompanied by loving kindness, by developing the 4 factors of mindfulness, or by developing concentration. A person who practices in this way is sometimes called a noble one who's developed the faculties. The fact that Gautama Buddha established a training of rules forbidding monks from revealing psychic powers to lay people also confirms that he did not encourage their use. In the Vinaya, the commentaries claim that the Buddha only forbid the powers of transformation, transfiguring oneself into different forms, creating mind-created objects for others to see, speaking while remaining invisible, or revealing only half of one's body. he did not forbid governing powers, revealing oneself as many, walking on water, or driving into the earth. This interpretation, however, seems not to be favored. As stated above, psychic powers are a form of mundane attainment, which enhance the attributes of those who have attained transcendent knowledge, helping them to better perform their activities and assist other human beings. Gautama Buddha referred to someone who is endowed with the three kinds of miraculous gifts as fully accomplished one who has reached the goal, one who has supreme or who is supreme among gods and humans. As stated earlier, however, the miracles of instruction is the principal and constant factor, while the remaining two miracles are supplementary. When there is a good reason to perform the miracles of psychic powers and mind reading, they should be applied merely in early stages, preparing the way of miracles of instruction. Instruction is the goal and consummation, as will be discussed at more length below. Dangers of psychic power. Psychic powers can be harmful both for people who possess them and for those associated with these people. Unenlightened people who possess these powers are intoxicated by them. Iti manta. This intoxication falls under the same categories of being intoxicated by knowledge, moral conduct, and concentration absorption. They may become conceited, feeling superior, denigrating others they may become obsessed with material gains and honors occurring from such powers. They may become dishonest, or they may use these psychic powers for evil purposes, as in the case Venerable Devadatta. At least the attachments to or delight in psychic powers prevents persons from realizing higher spiritual qualities and from cleansing the minds from impurities. And because of these psychic abilities of unawakened person are subject to decline, the anxiety around protecting these powers is an obstacle which infers with wise reflection, with wise reflection and effective application of insight, psychic powers are thus classified as objects to insight, concentration, iti palipota, which should be removed or eliminated by one who is developing wisdom. There is a high likelihood that people associating with a person who has psychic powers may also be harmed. The primary danger is that these people will become victims. Someone possessing or pretending to possess psychic power may boast of these powers in order to seek personal gain. Note that those people who practice correctly and who have aptitude in this area only exercise psychic powers in those circumstances which they deem them appropriate as they channel, leading to proper instruction. For if not to offer Satanat Dharma, the Dharma teachings, why would someone display such powers other than to seek personal fame or material gain? It is thus important to remember that psychic power should always be accompanied by proper instruction. If someone reveals or claims to have psychic powers without these powers being a bridge leading to the miracle of instruction, their behavior can be considered incorrect, leading in the wrong direction. The subject includes sacred and magical objects, occult powers, and those things Gautama Buddha referred as to the base or beastly arts. Tirachana Vija. The base arts are forms of knowledge that bar the way to heaven or to Nipita or external teachings that do not accord with the goal of Buddhism. They mostly involve divination, prophesizing, and the treatment of disease, which for a bhikkhu are considered faulty and harmful, form a moral point of view if he practices these arts to make a living or to seek personal gain. Patirachana Vija are distinct from Iti Patihariya. Dirachana Vija are discussed and mentioned repeatedly in the Sikha Kanta Vaga of the Dikha Nikaya. There are precepts forbidding the learning and teaching of these arts. They may have bad or deceitful intentions. They may be seeking personal gain, or they may simply have a diluted understanding of psychic powers. The same principle can be applied in the case of sacred objects or amulets. Someone who uses such objects when relating to people without providing any form of teaching, without leading them to the development of wisdom, to the understanding of truth, and to the gradual freedom from these objects, is practicing incorrectly, leading people in a wrong direction. Let me read that one more time. They have bad and deceitful intention. They may be seeking personal gain, or may simply have a diluted understanding of psychic powers. This same principle can be applied in the case of sacred objects or amulets. Someone who uses these objects when relating to people without providing any form of teaching, without leading them to development of wisdom, to the understanding of the truth, and to the gradual freedom from these objects, they are practicing incorrectly, leading other people in the wrong direction. Even if a person does not fall victim to someone who claims to possess psychic powers, a fascination or preoccupation with these things runs counter to two important Buddhist principles. First, Buddhism teaches the path to liberation. Because psychic powers are not of essential importance to Buddhism, they are not directly related to the goal of Buddhism and do not help people to be free from mental defilements. A fascination with these things tends to be a waste of time and energy, which could be used into practice of Dhamma. Second, those people who associated with someone claiming psychic powers or sacred powers generally wish for help for supernatural or divine forces, say for good luck or wealth. This behavior is inconsistent with the essential tenet of Buddhism, which is the teaching of action, kamma vata, a teaching of activity, kirya vata, and a teaching of effort, virya vata. Buddhism teaches people to seek results through determination, deliberate action in line with cause and effect. The wish for results through supplication to divine or supernatural forces can lead to an inactivity or laziness. It leads to the lack of effort, a lack of urgency to undertake necessary tasks to avoid harm. It contradicts the principle of appamado, heedfulness. If one takes the interest in psychic powers, it is better that one develops these powers oneself, although this still may be a waste of time, because the wish for the results from these powers from divine forces is reliance, for the divine forces are reliance on external things that makes a person more dependent on them. Instead of leading to more independence, the reliance on external things makes people less grounded and more confused. A person's resourcefulness, inner strength, and self-confidence is diminished. The reliance on external things contradicts another basic principle of Buddhism, which teaches self-reliance. Being a refuge unto oneself, Buddhism teaches the path to liberation, which at the end transcends faith and leads to pure wisdom. The path begins with dependence on wisdom of the teacher. The teacher is Gautama Buddha, the example, who is the spiritual friend, Kalyamita. Essentially, one can abandon even this form of dependence and stand on one's own 2 feet without the support from a teacher. Note, the principle of self-reliance needs to be balanced, and the principle of respect or veneration for the eternal law of Dhamma. Note that also that truly liberation persons heeds the teaching and is highly disciplined. Heeding the teachings and the principle of faith are not identical. Heeding the teaching or a disciplined compliance to the teaching can stem from faith or from wisdom. Arihats practice in accord with the teachings and keep the standards of discipline out of wisdom. Proper relationship to psychic powers. Regarding how the display of psychic powers affects people in general, let us look at the conduct of Gautama Buddha and his noble disciples, Dakinnaya Bogala, who were exceptionally skilled in psychic powers as mentioned above. Gautama Buddha clearly disfavored the miracles of performing psychic powers and mind reading, but consistently supported and applied the miracles of instruction. Instruction lies at the heart of Gautama Buddha's activities. There were instances, however, when Gautama Buddha performed psychic powers. By looking at these occasions, we can conclude that Gautama Buddha only exercised psychic powers when he was subduing or taming those who possessed these powers, those who gave great import to these powers, to who have arrogance felt superior to others, so they were abandoned their infatuation with them. He performed psychic powers to subdue psychic powers to encourage a person who was fascinated and conceited about them to realize their limitation, to see things as the superior to them, to study and recognize things which Gautama Buddha revealed through the miracle of instruction. This is similar to the aforementioned principles of applying psychic power in the conjunction with instruction, but here the application is limited to those who are intoxicated by psychic powers and who express stubborn pride when encountering Gautama Buddha. For example, the story of subduing the god Brahma. There are some stories of Gautama Buddha's disciples combining display of psychic powers with instruction to people who were fascinated with these powers. For example, with the story of Venerable Sariputra instructing Venerable Devadatta's disciples when the miracle of mind reading, and similar stories of Venerable Mahamoggallana exercising psychic powers. There are few stories of monks revealing psychic powers to help people, but there is not a single instance in the Pali Canon of monks exercising these powers as the consequence of people's requests for them. There are instances when people made this request because they wanted to witness these powers, but Gautama Buddha established a training rule forbidding monks for displaying such powers to lay people, as mentioned earlier. In everyday life, people must live with other human beings, live under ordinary circumstances, rather than relying on invisible external forces which have no direct connection to people. Buddhism emphasizes how it is better to train the disciple, or to train and discipline oneself to develop knowledge and skills so that he can solve problems using ordinary rational methods and reach success through righteous means. Gautama Buddha defined the ability leading to the success of a power, iti, which accords with Buddha's teachings. This ability is twofold: material power, amisa iti, and spiritual power, dhamma iti. the latter being is the leading principle. Ahimsa iti, material success or prosperity, materiality or as a creative force, and Dhamma iti, success or prosperity by way of the eternal law of Dhamma, spiritual prosperity. The Dhamma as a creative force, power of righteousness, having a beautiful physical appearance, long life, good health, and being attractive are also called forms of achievement, et. There are two primary points revealing the limitation of psychic powers along with all forms of sacred or supernormal forces, revealing these powers are not of essential importance to Buddhism. They are not related to the goal of Buddha Dhamma, are unnecessary for walking the Buddhist path, and offer no true security or safety. 1. From the perspective of wisdom, supernatural powers cannot directly give rise to wisdom, to the penetration of truth, and to the understanding of phenomena as they really are. An example of this limitation is the story of a monk who possessed psychic powers and went in search of an answer throughout all realms of existence until he arrived at the realm of Brahma, who claims to have created the world. Yet, this monk quest was in vain. A similar story describes the rishi who unsuccessfully traveled in search of the end of the universe until he died. 2. From the perspective of the mind, psychic powers are unable to truly eliminate mental defilements and to end dukkha. When the mind is confused, depressed, agitated, or overwhelmed by greed, hatred, and delusion, and all the other 16 factors of kilesas that keeps us from upekkha, equanimity, these powers are unable to lead to freedom, even if one suppresses these negative states of mind through the power of concentration, absorption, jhana. The solution is only temporary. Whenever one exits the state of concentration and faces ordinary life, the defilements return to disturb and harass and cause dukkha, suffering, agitation, stress, worry, and so forth. Even worse, psychic powers may be used to serve the defilements, as happened in the case of Venerable Devadatta.